in the country with the aim of benefiting more children. During his meeting with the UAE Minister for Environment and Climate Change, Mariam Al-Mehiri, at Harambee House Annex, Gachagua emphasized the robust bilateral relations between the two nations and Kenya's commitment to collaborating with the UAE to expand school feeding initiatives.
On Monday, the two held discussions that centered on combined collective actions in facing climate change with the aim of increasing the school meal plan in Kenya.
Come out of the worst drought in 40 years after 5 failed successful seasons, and as a result, millions of children are out there not going to school, and we have tried and it is working in areas where we have a school meals program. The enrollment in the school is very high and the retention rate, the children stick in school. So we really want you to intercede for us with your government, to be our advocate and see whatever support you can give to this country in that program, and it's well laid out in the concept note that we sent through diplomatic channels.
The Vice President Rigathi Gachagua has emphasized that Kenya is following the steps of other countries such as the UAE, which have succeeded in starting school feeding programs. He said that Kenya is still committed to increase the number of school children under the program from 1.8 million to 10 million by the year 2030.
We enjoy very good arrangements on matters security and defense. We are having very good cooperation in terms of combating terrorism and making sure that our young people are not radicalized. And that is why our school meals program is very important for us, because when these children don't go to school, they become easy prey to be recruited into terrorism groups and radicalization.
He has also praised the UAE for being listed as the 5th biggest seller of Kenya's products, while calling for more partnerships. Therefore, the government is trying to upgrade the agricultural sector in the country through reforms in its own sectors. This year, Kenya doubled its domestic investment in food programs from 15 million to 40 million US dollars. Additionally, those programs will have a great contribution in increasing the number of students in schools and improving their reservations. Roga Evil, Lookuptv.
Now, more than a dozen heads of states of African countries are due to attend the First Africa Climate Summit as the continent seeks to assert a stronger voice on a global existential problem that it contributes the least to. Now, Kenyan President William Ruto's government and the African Union launched the meeting Monday in Nairobi, determined to wield more global influence and bring in far more financing and support. Let's take a look.
Day 1 of the Africa Climate Summit. Heads of state and government led by President William Ruto among hundreds of delegates who convened at the Kenyatta International Convention Center for the inaugural African Climate Summit.
The climate conversation began 31 years ago in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro. But this is the first African summit 31 years later.
With Africa largely known for crop production, President Ruto lamented the effects of climate change on food production in the continent, thus the need to address matters of climate change.
Since 1961, Africa has witnessed a 1/3 reduction in agricultural productivity due to climate change, a stark reminder of the urgent need for adaptation. Yet, much of the world is just waking up to the merits of restorative agriculture, a practice that already resonates with African farming practices.
With the summit aimed at advocating for the use of renewable energy, President Ruto hinted at the continent being able to satisfy all its energy needs using renewable energy.
The continent has enough potential to be entirely self-sufficient with the mixture of wind, solar, geothermal, sustainable biomass, and hydropower. In Africa, we can be a green industrial hub that helps other regions achieve their net zero strategies by 2050.
The head of state also took the opportunity to continue to advocate for a fair financial system for African countries.
It is not a secret that we are paying at least 5 times as much as advanced economies to borrow from the financial markets. It's a fact, documented. We should develop effective policies and regulations that catalyze investment and entrepreneurship and unleash the creativity of local business. We must transform Africa's resource wealth from mere potential into real opportunities by directing large-scale investments that will actualize the possibilities that exist and await our citizens in present and in future generations.
African Union Representative Joseph Fasako, on her part, called on African countries to be on the forefront in battling climate change, despite other continents accounting for more emissions than Africa.
We are not isolated. We are following the global agenda. Although we are not the polluters, our responsibility is just 4%, but we cannot isolate because the climate issue, it's really affecting all of us globally, the planet, and we need a sound planet for the next generation.
Ian Keitane, Lookuptv.
Still on the same story, Nairobi is playing host to the Africa Climate Summit, which is more than just a gathering. It is a beacon of hope, a promise of a brighter tomorrow. Now, the president, for the second time, drove the summit in his electric car, symbolizing Africa's commitment toward a greener, more sustainable future. Let's take a look at that one as well.
Africa's first climate summit is underway, a continent that has had to pay a heavy price for climate change, mostly occasioned by the choices of the West, is now taking a seat at the table to have a global conversation on climate change. African nations are now at the forefront championing climate change and holding the Western countries to account for their contribution to the global climate challenge. The Africa Climate Summit, a gathering of leaders and visionaries, sets the stage for a brighter, sustainable future. Security teams stood vigilant, ensuring the safety of world leaders, including Kenya's President William Ruto, who was determined to lead by example. President Ruto emerged from his residence in a groundbreaking departure from tradition. He made his way to the summit in an electric vehicle, the sleek modern car symbolizing Africa's commitment to sustainable practices. President Ruto sat behind the wheel, his eyes filled with determination. The electric vehicle glided silently through the Kenyan landscape, powered by renewable energy, a beacon of hope for a greener Africa. As President Ruto arrived at the summit, the world watched in awe. His choice to drive himself underscored his dedication to a sustainable future and served as an inspiring example to leaders worldwide. Inside the conference hall, leaders from across the continent discussed ambitious climate goals, and the continent was doing this for the first time.
The climate conversation began 31 years ago in 1992 in Rio de Janeiro. But this is the first African summit 31 years later. This inaugural summit is going to be the stepping stone to the ultimate resolution of this challenge.
The Africa Climate Summit is making an indelible mark, placing the continent on the table where decisions are made. Brian Amuai, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Let's move on now. In efforts to curb corruption, Auditor General Nancy Gathungu has said that in cases where public money is misused within government institutions, relevant authorities should go for individuals responsible for the misappropriation of the public funds rather than the institutions themselves. And as Mevin Getembe now files, Gathungu was speaking during the Public Finance Management Reporting Framework Sensitization Program. Let's take a look.
During the sensitization program on public management reporting framework, Auditor General Nancy Gathungu has said that the second assessment program will be conducted with openness and accountability to seal gaps of corruption among government institutions.
I believe we have improved from the last assessment, but we shall wait and see because I like speaking from figures and facts. Ladies and gentlemen, the Constitution of Kenya requires us to ensure that there is openness and accountability, including public participation in financial matters. It also requires us to ensure that our public finance management system promotes an equitable society and that there is clear fiscal reporting. I'll take this opportunity to add that, Jonah, there's still a big group of institutions that we must bring on board when we are auditing, that we must separate from mainstream state departments or MDAs, like the tribunals. We are still mapping out in the Office of the Auditor General that we want them, because they have secretariats and they get budgets, that they prepare separate financial statements, and I will be reaching out to the Public Sector Accounting Standards Board.
On the other hand, a counterpart and financial advisor Kenneth Matiba has acknowledged that the tools used could facilitate comparison, act as a game changer, and could help in understanding the PMF feedback program.
What we just wanted to do is to give the Kenya scenario, the picture where we are, what we're doing. Of course, we've been using PEFA to evaluate our PFM systems. There are quite a number of limitations. As I go through the presentation, you'll be able to see that. And also the reform areas around it.
Budget and Appropriation Committee Chair Ndidi Nyoro has said that if the government has to borrow money, then that money should be directly used to foster development, as this will benefit Kenyans.
The other countries are borrowing 1%, less or 2%. This affects my grandmother, and that is what our development partners must know. It is not just macro figures. It affects my grandmother who doesn't know what GDP is. It affects my other grandfather in Nyando, the other one in Coast, who doesn't care what inflation is, and the other jargons that we use. Because just imagine if we were just priced fairly. The monies we are allocating to CFS, if our borrowing cost just went down by half only, and you know even half would be multiples of what other countries borrow at, we will free more than 400 billion to build roads, we'll free all that money to do housing. We will actually not be having the housing levy.
Maven Getembe, Lookuptv, Nairobi.
Listen, depending on where you are, it is not a good thing when you try to listen to your member of parliament, try to make sense of climate change. Here's the thing. If you go back to your primary school days and you studied what was GHC, all right, even science, it will be very easy for you to start to know what climate change is. I don't understand that any other person would go through an entire 844 system. It's now changed. Now we do have CBC included in that. And then you do not understand what climate change is. So, issues of global warming. I know we've gone through a lot of interpretations. Even presidents from United States of America, case in point, Donald Trump, try to say global warming is not a phenomenon they understand because he woke up one morning and it was quite cold. So he didn't understand what global warming was. Here's the thing. But at this time, when we are talking about single responsibility in issues to do with climate change, will make sense or will give us confidence as Kenyan citizens that we have a national house that essentially knows what climate change is. Fine. Away from that, there are issues that we should be looking at this morning, and that essentially involves understanding where we are as a country in terms of our political economy, and the utterances that have been made by Kalonzo Musyoka and one Eugene Wamalwa on how to date they haven't recognized the current government as the legitimate government. Is that setting a different precedent then to the ongoing conversations at the Bomas of Kenya? This morning, we're joined by Prof in the studio. We're going to look into issues like those and much more. So you can join us online at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. Prof, how are you doing, sir? Karibu sana. All right. Happy to have you around. Whew. So today, We are at Fusion Group, and the face to the business is a man who's essentially running this particular company. I want to introduce you to the CEO. His name, Mr. Kamau Daniel. What was your first task, personally, on a personal level?
2017, it was a very chaotic time. The economy had just misbehaved. One thing that was happening across the industries, all real estate companies were really struggling at that point. And I think at that point I was looking at stabilizing the company. So if you're able to sort out location, sort out trust issues, and be able to, avail land that can then be developed, you'll have gone halfway in delivering what Kenyans actually want. As a company that deals with investment, I think we've done well.
Pretty much, yeah.
Realize your home ownership dream by investing in Brookvale Tuala, a magnificent prime residential property located in Ongata Rongai. Brookvale Tuala by Safaricom Investment Cooperative overlooks the majestic Ngong Hills and lies only 24 kilometers from Nairobi CBD. The project boasts of well-serviced plots with a perimeter wall, graded roads and a borehole. 50 by 100 plots are going for 1.4 million shillings with a flexible payment plan of up to 6 months. To book your plot, call 0729 121212 today. Safaricom Investment Cooperative, the investment partner of choice.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Jambo mingi, jambo iko jambo sana. Oh yes, guess nani nilipigia simu juzi? Vivian wa Huruma Ngei. Leo ploti lazima inuke kitu mzuri. Sausage, bacon, nini uko nao Vivian?
Nimenunua chicken.
Chicken,
Unga ya chapati, ya mandazi.
Umecheza loto kwa muda gani sasa?
Nilianza last year, nikafika nikachoka, nikaacha, tena this year nikajaribu kama mara 4 hivi, lakini sasa imefua.
Unajua juzi nilikupigia simu, ulisikiaje juzi nikikwambia umeshinda 100k worth of shopping voucher?
Kwanza nilishtuka, sikuwa naamini kama nimeshinda. Lakini juu nishaiwatch watu wameshinda, nilikuja nikaamini.
Ndio hiyo. Utaambia watu nini? Watu ambao wako nyumbani, watu ambao wanaangalia. Utaambia Wakenya nini?
Cheza loto. Loto ni ukweli na usikufe moyo. Sasa ile unakufa moyo, kuna kitu inakusukuma ya kuambia jaribu. Ukijaribu tu ni hivyo.
Over 18s only. Gaming can be addictive. Play responsibly. This message has been approved by the BCLB.
Changamka, cheza loto.
Praise the Lord and Bwana Yesu asifiwe sana. My name is Pastor Josiah. I'm from a ministry called Reconcilers World. God gives strength to the weary. I am, Jesus is speaking. He says, I am the door. Then he says, anyone who enters in through me will be saved. The Lord is my shepherd or shepherd. Then he says, I will always have everything I need. God desires to guide you. He's telling you that this day, don't just trust the Lord, but he's telling you, trust the Lord widely.
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present to you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
Beautiful, wonderful, glorious. We are having the show that we share entitled Shepherd Voice.
I'm waiting for you to get me to Kenya. That's what I'm waiting
for you.
God is the source of every blessings that flow into your life.
And I know that God is going to bless you and to do a new thing.
Pray.
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present to you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
Hi, and welcome to Tujenge Home. Your #1 show when it comes to all things architecture, real estate, property development, interior design. You get it right here on Tujenge Home. When the food is ready.
You want to serve them?
Dinner is served. Yeah. Let's go.
Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali na manjoro. Kumbuka hapa ndipo unajifunza mambo mengi kuhusu ukulima. Kilimo ni uti wa mgongo wa nchi, na ukiwa na njoro unajifunza. Kumbuka, angalia mwenyewe. Tunakuambia ukitaka kujua tips za ukulima, ungana na sisi kwenye Lookuptv. Every Sunday unatukuta pale saa 10, tunakuonesha kuhusu ukulima. Ukulima wa mimea, ukulima wa ng'ombe, ukulima wa kuku, ukulima wa mbuzi na yote ambayo yanahusiana na ukulima. Kumbuka nini? Kipindi ni ukulima ni mali.
Karibu mtazamaji kwenye kipindi cha jamii na itikadi.
Kaini kitako tuna mengi.
Mapenzi yanapoanza watu huitana bebi na majina mengine matamu, lakini baadaye penzi linapogeuka na kuwa shubiri,
mtu anafikia kwenda kumtafuta mke mwingine.
Itakuwaje?
Yule wa kwake nyumbani labda hajamridhisha.
Ni sawa ama vipi Maliki?
Dadangu, wanaume ni kama maembe.
Huyu ni mwanamume atakuja abadiliki.
Mwanaume mwenye wanawake wengi hata katika uchumba, kwenye ndoa ataendelea. Mtu na tabia yake hawachi. Ile umbo la kike likishaanza, kila kitu kishaanza kuwa mahali pake.
Ningependa kukuona.
Sijaenda mahali ambapo mimi nilisikia mtu ati huyu alikuwa shujaa, alikufa katika mstari wa mbele wa ndoa. Sijawahi sikia mimi.
IUE.
Right, let's then open the discussion this morning. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. My name is Simba Kiage online on Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. The hashtag is the morning drift. So let me start with that particular statement because we do know that the climate summit is officially ongoing at the Kenyatta International Conference Center, and this is what the Member of Parliament Salasia was talking about climate change. And I will start with it like this before I introduce the panel that is joining us this morning for these conversations. And this is on the sidelines of an interview then yesterday. And this, as we are all aware, it's that it is climate change because you find that, by the way, climate change is real because of global warming. Hold on, continues. I was in Mombasa last week and it was so cold. I asked them, what is happening? They told me the sun has become too much and the ice is melting. So when it melts, that thing becomes cold. And this is quote unquote, continues, global climate is real and whatever people are going to be told here, if they're going to implement well for the sake of the country. Continues, we are representative of the rural constituencies who mostly use firewood for cooking, and now we are advancing for the use of kokojiko and the other types of gas. But the people don't have money. We are hoping the government will come up with measures like the reduction of cooking gas prices. He says, at what point the man beside him trails away laughing quietly. Continues, you have a plan, we're going to submit and see how they can be funded and implemented, the legislator says, adding that he's also looking for an electric car similar to what the president has been riding to the summit. Prof. Good morning. Let me come over.
Yes.
I'm not saying we didn't make it up. Yeah. That's yesterday on the sidelines of the climate summit that the president opened yesterday.
Yes.
So Salasia has no clue what climate change is.
Yes.
And this is a summit that we are holding here in this country.
It's not a surprise. There was one US president who flew from the US and he was flying to a certain country, and then he wondered why because he left around 8 p.m. and he arrived in the other place at 9 p.m. So he was saying that this flight is just 1 hour, but he had no idea about time difference. A whole president in the US. So this is not a surprise. It's happened in many places. In fact, people have said that Americans have elected not so very educated presidents, especially coming from Texas. Yeah. You know those presidents, they come from Texas. So Republicans, also Republicans don't believe on climate change. Yes, they don't. They believe that there's nothing like that. They say America, you know, when you go to the US, it's an expansive state. America has everything. It has oceans, it has forests, it has rivers, it has lakes, it has mountains. There's nothing you cannot get in the US. That's why some Americans never leave the US. And they can be very clueless about any part of the world because everything in the US, for example, if you go to places like Florida, you have a place where the weather never really changes. It's like you are enjoying the very good weather through and through. But you can come places like, for example, Washington, D.C., New York, where you can actually have very, very harsh winters. So American has winter, American has summer, American also have all weather around, just like you can find, for example, in Kenya. American has mountains, rivers, lakes, they have snow, they have everything within the same country. So some people can be amazingly clueless. In fact, someone says, do not underestimate the power of ignorance. And this is what Kenyans have to learn, the power of ignorance. That, look, this guy was elected by people. And and he convinced them to vote him. Now, if he's that ignorant about climate change, what about his people? I'm saying that people just hear about global warming. What is global warming? In fact, the term global warming had been withdrawn a long time ago. We are talking about climate change.
Climate change.
Because global warming misrepresented facts, because you find that some areas temperatures were lower than they should actually be, meaning that they are not having their normal climate. So they say climate change. And some areas temperatures were rising so highly that it was actually unprecedented, the weather required. So those ones were temperatures changing, weather patterns changing. So we talk about climate change. The term global warming is no longer accurate because there are some parts that are not warming up. Actually, they're getting colder.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Here's the thing then, just before we get into what's going on in the political economy in the country, the president has opened that particular summit.
Yes.
But then, Prof, and this is a question that I put across the critics of President RUTO, coming at a time when just a couple of months ago, his government lifted the ban on logging in the country.
Yeah.
It had to take activists going to court to challenge that lifting of the ban. That's when the High Court came in and said, well, hold on, we have to stay the earlier decision then to continue that ban.
Yeah.
Does it represent the president as a man who's speaking from two sides of the coin? Is it double speak when he stands in front of that particular stage and says, we as Africans, we as African nations have to think critically about the decisions that we're making now for our future? Yet is a man who had to wait for the court to make a decision to stop him from a decision that is integral in a conversation that is happening in his country right now.
Simba, I don't think there's something wrong with the president.
Yeah.
It's just the people who are trying to understand him that don't understand him. If you want to understand William Ruto, one thing, there's what you call mannerism. Mannerism is the summary of the whole presidency.
Yes.
And I can tell you that when you understand Ruto for mannerism, Ruto is someone who can even go under the table when it favors him, sit on the chair when it works. The issue is mannerism. So his style of politics has worked for him. In fact, anybody trying to criticize him just doesn't know that the guy knows how to maneuver stuff.
Yes.
Look, for example, look at this situation, how Ruto finished Raila Odinga in one way. Kibaki was made president. William Ruto was a minister in the government. Raila was a prime minister, isn't it, in that same government. And then Raila's main thing was to settle IDPs because he was the one who the people who suffered post-election violence were fighting for. So his main role was to settle IDPs. Raila requested for some ministries and Kibaki said, no way, no way. So he was given minister for lands, which Orengo was sitting on. But he didn't know that even if you have a ministry of land, if you don't control treasury, you can't do anything. Because Simba, if you don't sign any contract with Treasury, any ministry can sign a contract with you, is just a piece of paper. Because that's where money moves. So if you want to settle IDPs, you own a Minister of Lands, the Minister of Land will come with a framework to settle IDPs, but the check from Treasury is critical. So if Treasury is not involved, it's a joke. So with that involved, when Raila was making noise about IDPs, the project for environment came. So Raila was given the MAU. And when Raila was given the MAU, he started now clearing the MAU, saying this is a very important water tower, is the environmental feature. Raila was right environmentally. He was very right. Yes. But RUTO gathered the Kalenjin leader and told them, excuse me, rainfall do not come from trees. The rainfall comes from heaven. Remember that conversation? And RUTO was championing. They said, rainfall comes from where? From heaven, not from the trees. Do you think he doesn't know? He has a PhD in botany. So he knows that. Now, are you asking another question? So if I look at the punctuated maneuvers and inconsistencies, RUTO is a president that does not care about what he says. He just looks at the moment, what favors the moment, and he works on it. And that has made so many leaders. In fact, when you hear people have different lives, even you go to Raila Odinga, he also has different lives where this was right, and it was right at the moment, you stand by it. Tomorrow, is something else that is opposite to this one favors you, you move to it. So, Simba, politicians are like that. In fact, I've been urging Kenyans, it is high time we don't elect typical politicians. And I'm asking people, the US has tried to tour with the different personalities. Mm-hmm. There's a time the US thought that it's good to have a Democrat, it's good to have a Republican. They discovered that Republicans and Democrats are just the same. Then they went and said, okay, let us try black Americans because maybe all these guys are just thugs. Let's try black American. Maybe he has something. Obama came in, but Obama delivered somehow. Only that Obama never did what they thought he was going to do towards the blacks, because even when Obama was sworn in, a black man was shot in Pennsylvania Avenue. Yes, he said, my goodness, how can a black be shot when a black is in White House? So the black people gave up the idea that the blacks can change the challenges of black people if they are president. Yeah. And now, then they said, now we are tired of all these thugs. That's how Trump won the election. Trump says, all politicians are thieves. Let us elect a businessman. Trump is a businessman. When he came in, you saw the chaos which was there. So I'm saying there is a way in which I think we need to start looking at people who stand for something. For example, people who believe, you look at the punctuation, the mannerism, you understand these people, what they stand for. In fact, Obama did beat John McCain on something very interesting, which I think Kenyans need to learn. When John McCain was running against Obama, John McCain flew an aircraft, military aircraft, to show that he's a commander-in-chief that can take over state. Remember, that's the time when Iraq was threatening and the issue of the Gulf War was a challenge. And of course, American security was there. You know, remember the September 11th. Those issues are threatening American security. We want a head of state who even knows how to fly a military plane. That he was giving a symbol. Immediately after that flight, Obama's approval ratings fell down below John McCain, and John McCain was winning the election. Then Obama went and sat with his team and said, now what do we do? Because John McCain was saying Obama is young and ill-experienced, like little experienced. Yes. So John McCain was now running the election. It was like he was taking it up. Obama came and said, no. It's not about the experience, it's about quality of decision. So they came up with the issue whereby they were both in the Senate. And Senator McCain, Senator Obama were voting on different issues in the Senate. And they came up with the issue where when Obama stood for something, who was wrong, and John McCain stood for something. So they found out when Obama said yes, John McCain said no. When Obama said no, John McCain said yes. And they found there was a punctuation, 16 different voting in different issues when McCain was wrong and Obama was right. So Obama said it does not matter how experienced you are, is that you have experiences of getting it wrong. Me, I have experiences of getting it right. So even if I'm young, I can be trusted that when the world stood for this, for example, there's now in Kenya, we have what's called the Bomas thing, isn't it? Now, a Kuru Accord says Bomas is useless, there's no need of having it, isn't it? Now, you see that one, history will judge him. If the Bomas thing was good, isn't it? We'll tell you are wrong on that, isn't it? Mandamano. Some people said people should go to Mandamano until everybody dies, isn't it? Me, I said, we should not even do it because we know it will hurt somebody, isn't it? So some people said, no, we should do it until RUTO leaves office. So those people stood for it. Tomorrow, if they are in government and somebody goes for Mandamano, what will happen? Remember also the clip about Kindiki. When Kindiki stood and said, Parliament should be put on fire because Parliament is a place where people are not. He gave the example of Burkina Faso when people lit the Parliament of Burkina Faso on fire and parliamentarians ran away and government changed. You understand? So he was speaking during Uhuru's presidency that whenever Parliament can do something, Parliament should be put on fire, isn't it? They are passing very bad bills, draconian bills, isn't it? Now somebody played the clip and said, now Parliament has passed the finance bill, which is draconian. So should we not put it on fire? So you see, all these inconsistencies is not just about William Ruto. In fact, for me, if only William Ruto is inconsistent, we should point fingers. According to me, all these politicians are inconsistent.
Pretty much.
In fact, the people who have tried to be consistent, you can, for example, Martha Karua has tried to be very consistent. Even when she was caught about the BBI, when she was told, but you oppose BBI, why are you with Raila Odinga? I said that he disagreed with Raila Odinga on the process. And even if they come back, he will tell Raila Odinga do the right thing. So some people have tried to be very consistent. The issue of the UNGA. Remember before the election, UNGA was on the news, and it was very clear. Raila was asked to say, "Wacha kubweka bweka." Sivyo? He says UNGA is affected by Ukraine and the rest. Now later, Raila says that now he needs to fight Ruto to lower cost of living, and that Ukraine war and Russia war and COVID-19 should not be used as explanation. So you see that this is something that these guys have mastered. And also what they do, they take advantage of us. In fact, that's the main thing. They take advantage of us because we have short memories. And there are two types of biases that we own as human beings, as a psychologist. There's what they call a bias of recency effect and bias of primacy effect. Bias or recency effect is that people only remember the last thing they hear about you. If they only remember the last thing, if they just hear Ruto says that environment is important, Africa, let's come together, that's what people remember. They forget everything he said before. But some people, they have bias or primacy effect. The first thing they hear from you, that's what they remember. So if you said, let's log the trees, so whatever you say, they don't listen. And it's an advantage to Kenyans, I can tell the president that continue, because 80% of people have a bias or recency effect. So you can continue. You'll continue always be with 80%. So it's enough to win an election. It's enough to be popular. But these guys who can remember everything you said earlier and before, and there are very few, so it does not matter.
Pretty much. Some other question that I wanted to put into perspective from an economic perspective. I don't know whether it was the right stage yesterday for President William Ruto to stand up and drum for a single trade currency in African states, saying that we need to move as a bloc. So a single trading currency essentially is going to make it easy for us to make decisions on trade that essentially impacts on climate change. Do you think that the continent is ripe for a single trading currency?
No, because, well, first of all, give credit to the president somehow, because in as much as what he's talking about, their time has not come. It's an idea, its time has not come. But as I said, it's worth talking about it. In fact, there's an African saying, which is actually a Kan saying, a Kan in Ghana, that says that when a puppy eventually impregnated the mother, it began like a joke. Just a puppy climbing the mother, and it looks like a joke, then you realize that the mother is pregnant. So, I mean, that's how things happen. This means that things start like someone may make statement, there could be a joking statement, there could be political statement, but that's how the idea gets its time coming and then it works. So, credit is that it's good talking about it. But secondly, what's a currency? A currency should go with the market. There's no African market. You know that, Simba? Why am I saying so? There's no country you can say you can distribute something from Kenya. If you go to Europe, when you launch flowers in Amsterdam, you can distribute the flowers in the whole of Europe, isn't it? But here, we don't have any market. So currency should begin with the market. Is there East African market?
You like to think there is?
There's none. Is there any African market?
Yes, we do have a trading bloc.
No, we don't. We don't have.
Yes.
Even East African community is still just a community by theory. There is no East African market. Even ECO was not a market. Why am I trying to say so?
So these communities are supposed to create a market in theory, isn't it?
You know, if you bring flowers to Europe, you land flowers in Amsterdam, they will go to every country in Europe as local flight.
I see that.
You understand? If you bring even medicine from Europe and import them and bring them to Nairobi, can someone just cross the border with them to go with them to Tanzania? No. There must be different tariffs and all those things, isn't it? Even if you just buy a car, there are some cars with European number plates, isn't it? Actually, when you see number plates for cars in Europe, you see the EU symbol, isn't it? So we are not a market for anything, whether it's drugs, medicine, vehicles, water, everything is different. Even we still don't have a market to match with the currency. You know, if a currency does not match with the market, there's a misnomer there and the currency cannot even stable. Then secondly, the mistrust that we have with each other. I remember when Kenyatta, I think history should be allowed here. Do you know why this place is called community? You know, there's a place now called community.
Next to Upper Hill.
Do you know why it's called community? You don't know? So East African Community had the headquarters in community.
Okay.
You see those buildings there where Lands Office is, Afya Center, water?
Yes.
Those buildings are not for Kenya. Those buildings belong to East African Community. So when East African Community collapsed, Kenya inherited the buildings which were built by money from East African Community. And that's why Nyerere says a man eats a man society. So Kenyan ate everything because Kenya was the headquarters. So now the question is, where is the central bank going to be located when we have the common currency? Who will agree? Will Museveni want it? Will RUTO want it?
Yes.
Will Shikedi from DRC want it? Will Suluhu want it? So you see, even to agree on where is the central bank of Africa going to sit is an issue. There are so many things. So it's a long walk to that. Let the talk begin. But I'm sure not in President Ruto's presidency, not even the sixth president's presidency, and it remains an aspiration of forever. But nevertheless, it's a good conversation.
Yes.
But it's just like any other conversation. Like when I was in primary school, I promised some women I'll marry them. Then I discovered I'm more trouble. I went to secondary school, I promised some people. Then university, promised some people. It's after my PhD that actually my promises were true. So it's like everything begins with the journey.
That's it.
Yeah.
Pretty much. At this time, let me introduce the conversation. Brian Biswa, good morning, sir. How are you doing? Can you get us? Biswa, can you get us? Good morning. As we wait for Nabiswa's fallback to come into the studio, Director, you can actually organize for that so we can get Nabiswa right here in the studio. I want to put a question to you that I put to Prof. Just before we take a tiny breath and then come back and talk about what the political economy in the country is about. Prof says, but not what Prof says essentially, that President William Ruto is now championing for a critical change in our climate policies in Africa, but is a man who, as we do know, Nabiswa, was heavily criticized for lifting the ban that was put in place from the previous government to stop logging in the country, which, as we do know very well, is also a critical conversation point in climate change topics in the country. All right, Nabiswa, just shortly then, I just wanted to introduce you to the studio. I'm sorry, we're fixing your audio right here in the studio. Once we come back, then we shall be talking to you on that, and then open the discussion this morning, which is essentially on where we are in the political economy in the country. Some things have been said, and this is what has been said, that the azimio coalition, in as far as the principles are concerned, still do not recognize President Ruto as the legitimate president. Where are we in that conversation? Is it the right time for us to speak like that, when, as we do know, there's already an ongoing conversation at the Bomas of Kenya to set the record straight? Once we come back, Prof. Anabiswa with us this morning.
Infinity Industrial Park is one of the largest private industrial parks located along Eastern Bypass, Nairobi, which provides modern infrastructure for smooth operations for industries and business enterprises. Infinity Industrial Park offers world-class amenities and facilities with wide roads, a police station, a power substation, fire station, public transport stage, hospital, and shopping mall. In addition, Infinity Industrial Park also offers CCTV cameras, 24-hour private armed security patrol, sewer, water, fiber optic cable, and 3-phase power connection, added to public utility, canteen, and dining areas. Sail on the golden opportunity to invest in Infinity Industrial Park fully serviced warehouses at a special price of 3,569 Kenyan shillings per square foot. For more inquiries, visit our website infinityindustrialpark.com.
Wewe ndio unaweza kuwa the next winner wa 100,000 shopping voucher.
Changamka, cheza Loto.
Umecheza kama kwa muda gani sasa?
Tuseme for 3 months now.
3 months.
But very consistently.
Very consistently. Umekuwa kucheza na kama how much?
50 bob.
50 bob.
Nikipata 50 bob na nimeweka.
Aha. 100k na hii economy itakufanyia nini?
Imenisaidia sana. Una nimefanya shopping hapa. Nimenunua ka suitcase na travel soon so. Imenisaidia na nimefanya shopping, nimefanya nyumbani pia kidogo.
Ungependa kuambia nini wale wa Kenya ambao wanacheza Loto?
Napenda kuambia si uongo, ni ukweli kabisa. Kwanza haswa sana watu wangu wa Western, ni ukweli. Na nitaendelea kucheza. Kwa hivyo muendelee kucheza, msukufa moyo ati ni uongo, ni ukweli. Nimehakikisha leo ni ukweli kabisa.
Over 18s only. Gaming can be addictive. Play responsibly. This message has been approved by the BCLB.
Changamka, cheza Loto.
Realize your home ownership dream by investing in Brookvale Tuala, a magnificent prime residential property located in Ongata Rongai. Brookvale Tuala by Safaricom Investment Cooperative overlooks the majestic Ngong Hills and lies only 24 kilometers from Nairobi CBD. The project boasts of well-serviced plots with a perimeter wall, graded roads and a borehole. 50 by 100 plots are going for 1.4 million shillings with a flexible payment plan of up to 6 months. To book your plot, call 0729 121212 today. Safaricom Investment Cooperative, the investment partner of choice.
As the night falls, we come to life to bring you a comprehensive broadcast from the numerous events happening across our 47 counties.
When it breaks, it matters, and each story is important.
If it's Thursday, join me, Nancy Lima, and my able panelists as we break down the law jargons and analyze the Constitution in a way only you can understand.
The news cycle never stops, neither does time. We cover each and every sector and present to you factual and accurate occurrences. This is where facts win the day. Join me,
Nancy Lima,
Ian Keitani, Tuesday, every Wednesday,
Thursday,
as from 9 p.m. on The Insight, only on Lookuptv.
Let's come back then and talk about the political economy in the country. And this week, statements were made. Statements were made by one Eugene Wamalwa and Kalonzo Musyoka, some of the key principles in the Azimio coalition. And this is what they said. We didn't say that we recognize the Kenya Kwanza government as the legitimate government. Eugene Wamalwa said, look, I'm waiting for the audit of the 2022 election results. And number two, Kalonzo Musyoka went on to say, well, you see, I can't say that. There's still issues here that we're talking about at the Bomas of Kenya. And until all of them are done and dusted, such kind of statements should not be associated with me. We ran that story here and we called it, I was misquoted. Good. At this point, then, let me introduce Nabiswa Brand to the conversation. Nabiswa, here's a question. It's not about whether it's okay for us to continue saying this particular statement at this time. They've already said it and they're bold about it. Raila Amolo Odinga also said it this weekend, by the way, at Narok, saying, well, we still do not recognize this as a legitimate government. We're still waiting for those conversations to end at the Bomas of Kenya. Is it in the right spirit for these Azimio principles to keep on talking like this when we do know very well that those negotiations are going on at the Bomas of Kenya? Should they retire this kind of talk completely until maybe at least we are done with those negotiations at the Bomas of Kenya? And we've been counting, we do have something like 48 days left for us to get the results of those negotiations.
Good morning, Elijah.
Good morning.
Now, following the sentiments that most of the Kenya's opposition, and particularly the Azimio people, they are continually telling us how they don't recognize the President of the Republic of Kenya. And up now, I don't understand, or I don't get on which basis. But factoring in that we need the talks to progress, to go on well, yes, I think they should retract such kind of pronunciation until we get to the bottom of the matter, or we conclude the talks. Because I feel like both sides should come with in good faith, discipline, and some kind of respect for both sides, for us or the nation to have substantive and objective talks.
Yes, pretty much. Nabiswa, I'll be coming back to you. Prof, let's look into this issue. In the face of the negotiations at the Bomas of Kenya, you'd like to think that the Azimio side and the Kenya Kwanza side would desist from such kind of conversation until at least then we start to get the results from the Bomas of Kenya, but they're not.
Yeah, Simba, I don't think this is something unusual.
Yes.
But there's just, if you compare, of course, it's always good to compare context. In the whatever Azimio is looking for is akin to the accord, which is the Kibaki-Raila negotiation in 2007, yes, 2008. I remember that Kibaki and Raila did handshake, but Raila never referred to Kibaki as His Excellency the President. That was very key. And you know, that script really helped Raila all the way. It is when after the promulgation of the accord, and was actually passed in Parliament, that Raila went on to declare Kibaki as His Excellency the President. Exactly. And I've said it in many times that there's what you call legitimacy. And legitimacy is two ways. There's legal license to operate. Legal license is like you give the certificate of election, then you've been sworn in, even after a Supreme Court battle, you've been sworn in. That is a legal license to operate. But there's what we call social license to operate, and that's what Raila Odinga is not giving RUTO anytime soon. And I also saw the argument of Kalonzo. He had some grounds to that. Even azimio people have some grounds that go. They're saying, first of all, the election was contentious, and people are doubting whether you won the election. So people are doubting the legal license, but legal license is there. So RUTO is the president of Kenya, sworn in legally in office. But the doubts are there. Nevertheless, their problem is that the draconian bills which have been passed, yes, and not delivering on his manifesto normally gives you the social license to operate. So Simba, let's assume that you're a father, isn't it? Let's say you are a husband. You are married somebody, you have a ring in your finger, you sign the marriage certificate. That is the legal license to be a husband. But when people come home, there's no food, there's nowhere to stay, and you lose the social license to operate. I remember there's a situation when I was a teacher somewhere, on a school somewhere in Mombasa. So one of my staff got married in a wedding with another person, a lady. After she got married with somebody legally married, but somebody else is the one who made her pregnant. So the question was, who is the husband? I'm sure. So in legal term, the legal wedded husband is the husband, isn't it? But in social terms, the father to a child is the husband. So you see, this is whereby now, let's say Raila is saying that legally you are in office, yes, but social license to operate you, yes, don't have, because one, without your election, and secondly, you have not been able to deliver to your promise. Cost of living is high. So those are arguments that actually you can take them to the bank. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So when there is this dispute,
yes,
just quickly before I cross over to Nabiso, when there is this dispute and you've agreed, now, because somebody else made you pregnant, good,
yeah,
but then I legally married you,
yes,
good, and then you put aside a team. Your clan has sat, my clan has sat, and they've said, give us 60 days. We're going to get to the root of this matter. We're going to give you a solution.
Yeah.
In the spirit of you agreeing to those negotiations to find a solution to the issues that you've raised, can't you at least stop speaking in the wrong, what is that? In the wrong
but
term,
the same thing
against the other guy.
Gachagua went and said nothing is coming out of it. So this is, every side is trying to up the stakes. I remember immediately Raila Odinga calls William Ruto, His Excellency the President.
Yes.
Even the talks in Bomas is useless. Why are we discussing about Sava when he's the president? He has not given the concessional speech yet. Remember, after Ruto, after Raila met with Uhuru at the base of Arambe House, Raila was given a title, His Excellency, by Uhuru. I'm privy to that information. And from there, he called him His Excellency. Are we waiting for a point when even Raila will be called His Excellency Raila Amolo Odinga and His Excellency William Ruto? Those are possibilities, I'm telling you. And that's why that term, His Excellency, is in contention. No one is giving to the other. These guys are saying mtu wa kitendawili. Sivyo? That's how it's called, isn't it? Si Ruto calls him mtu wa kitendawili. Gachagua says mzee mtu wa kitendawili. So why should Raila respect them and tell them His Excellency when for him is mtu wa kitendawili? So I'm saying respect must be two-way traffic. And respect is earned. Has Kenya Kwanza earned their respect? No. Look at the bashing in in Western Kenya. According to me, when Kalonzo is doing what Kalonzo is doing, Kalonzo is being very smart. Kalonzo knows clearly that he may want Raila to say Kalonzo Tosha. And for him to even get the blessings of the Raila supporters, which is Luo Nyanza, Coast, and the rest, he needs to start talking like Raila. Because they like Raila because how Raila engages them. So if Kalonzo does not engage them, they Raila engage them, they won't embrace him. So he has to do that. With Eugene Wamalwa, if you ask, for example, suppose, I'm not saying this, but suppose Raila Odinga says, I'm not running in 2027, but I want to be a kingmaker. Whom will he make king? Kalonzo. Why? I would ask him to Kalonzo, because Kalonzo has stood with him for the longest time possible. And secondly, because of arithmetics, there must be somebody Machakos, meeting with somebody from Western, Eugene Wamalwa comes second. And that's why you hear Eugene Wamalwa's statement seems to be very consistent, Raila's statement and that of Kalonzo. Of course, the third person could be Oparanya, but Oparanya now, of course, the challenges about the corruption there, here and there is challenging. But I can tell you, those people are actually taking over from the king slowly. Unless Raila says he's running, I think that Kalonzo is playing a good role. In fact, people have always had Kalonzo. I've had conversation now among the community where I come from. People say that Kalonzo has been blowing hot and cold. The watermelon thing tag is being removed slowly by slowly because he stood Raila throughout the Mandamano. Now he's the chair. In fact, Martha Karua should have been the chair there, but I think the question was that because she was in the ballot with Raila, they're candidates, so they should not be in the Bomas. But Martha Karua could have been the most qualified person to chair because Martha Karua is a great boardroom negotiator. She's so smart in negotiation in boardroom. She knows politics. She knows law. She may not be a great grand mobilizer like Kalonzo Musyoka, because Kalonzo Musyoka is better than her. Because Kalonzo mobilized good votes for Raila in Ukambani. But Martha Karua, even the MCA from her place is from UDA. So the circumstances are different, but I can tell you Kalonzo has done very well for himself in this conversation.
That's it. I'll be coming back to you on that. Now, Biswa, now listen to that conversation. That, look here, that talk about these talks, the disrespect, according to Prof, is also coming from the other side. It's not long ago when the DEP said, well, those negotiations are useless, there's nothing that's going to come out from there, and that particular speak is not the very first time we are hearing it. So it doesn't damage anything in those talks if Raila Amolo Odinga, the likes of Eugene Wamalwa, the likes of Kalonzo Musyoka come in and say, well, we do not recognize this government as a legitimate government. So it's nothing if it comes from both sides.
Elijah, to start off, this kind of sentiments, I foresee them fueling the failure of the talks. Even as much as the committee will give a qualified decision that they abide by, but I don't see them going far because of this kind of sentiments, more so particularly from the government side. You see, if we can borrow a reference from the dialogues or the dialogues of 2008, you remember at that time there was that accord between PNU and ODM whereby it culminated to allowing peace in the country. But at the end of the day, you could see there was no that mutual understanding, or it wouldn't last longer because we could see from the actions between the Prime Minister's side and the government side. And the reason being that there was no much willingness. The talks were there in the public domain. We could see that the talks are there to bring peace and harmony between our political class. But inside themselves, there wasn't that goodwill. And you could see, at the end of the day, you could see Mwai Kibaki and his side sometimes making decisions and doing some, taking some actions without involving the Prime Minister. And we saw at the end of the day whereby even the Prime Minister himself was complaining. And the major reason was there was such whatever we are seeing now, kind of sentiments were there at that time. So it means there is no fully support from both sides in these talks, especially from sections of UDA side. I've seen several key members of parliament. I'll not want to mention names, but you could see continuously, including the deputy president, saying that these talks should stop or should not go far. Unlike the 2018 talks, whereby I think there was much goodwill and good faith in the talks, and it lasted for long. The agreement or the peace that came as a result of 2018 talks went up to the end of President Uhuru's term, because I think there was more goodwill and good faith. And you saw all the, apart from 1 or 2, 3, 5, majorly the opposition team, that is ODM and Wiper, supported the move and supported the president, and they worked together. But this time round, I foresee that even if there will be an unexpected outcome or a positive outcome,
yes,
it won't last long.
Pretty much. Good. Prof, then let's then look at the gist of these talks at the Bomas of Kenya. Now, the question has been always that these gentlemen now, they're not speaking like that just from nowhere, because the government has issues that they want to get a soft landing when it comes to the National House.
Yeah.
And they know that the opposition or the minority side has the numbers in parliament as well, and they would like to move properly together, especially on the entrenchment of the office of the cabinet prime CS, and also on that particular one, the CDF kitty that's supposed to be managed by members of parliament. They feel that it would be easier for them to get into a referendum if indeed the National House looks at this issue in unison, passes it as fast as it can. Good. But then on that particular one, they're also talking about the audit of the 2022 result.
Yeah.
They're so keen on it. And remember, before these talks, there was a debate on what was going to be the talks.
Yeah.
That there was a big announcement. They're going to talk about everything. Even if the government wants a soft landing, you and I will sit here and say, the Azimio coalition will be given something. What is that something? Why is it that we have Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Wamalwa, and Raila Amolo Odinga speaking the same way they were speaking before these negotiations, at a time when they know very well that the government wants a soft landing on some issues through the National House, knowing very well that they're going to be given something? What is this thing that the Azimio coalition is going to be given?
No, first of all, you have to understand that there's what we call raising stakes.
Yes.
So I'm sure that also the other side, there's so-called techniques of negotiation.
Yes.
And whenever we have a negotiation, there's something called BATNA, best alternative settlement to a negotiated settlement, something like that.
Yes.
What is your best alternative to a negotiated settlement? So that's your partner. For example, you are going to look for them, they are going to the seat saying they want to remove RUTO from State House. But they know now that is not possible. So what is their best alternative to a negotiated settlement? What is that? So maybe RUTO had said before, he actually threw the carrot by saying office of the official opposition. But they're not budging. I think they want more than that. If you look at how things are happening, they want more than that. Because remember that Raila Odinga ran for election and he promised everybody everything because he knew he was going to take over government. So he cannot just take leader of opposition then go quad. They are looking for more. There could be way to expand that office, because the office can be there with one person, but also you can create that office that can employ other people, so that some of his aid can also have space to be. Remember, I also think that the office of the CS, this prime secretary, could be in contention. Opposition can say we need it. And maybe Mudavadi can be a big loser in this one. And also there should be some people who might be appointed in some parastatals, boards and the rest. So there could be a lot of things happening at the chini ya meza.
Yes.
There must be a lot of things happening. So the most stakes they raise by saying, I'm not happy with this, I'm not happy with that, I'm not satisfied by that, is when the stakes are raising. And also they're saying, it's useless, the elections were over, that thing was ended in Mombasa. Gachaga wants to make it look like these
was
guys
already
were
done and dusted, isn't
yeah,
it?
it was done.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Gachaga also knows that's not genuine. So the stakes must be increasing either side. Normally you don't say thank you before the deal actually is finally given. So you have to show you are so dissatisfied. Like for example, when you go to negotiate, I was actually giving a TikTok on how to ensure that when you go to the Forex Bureau, when you're changing money to get the higher rate. Do you know I know that? I must have, because I must have. So I just went there one day. I was exchanging money, and I was told how much. He told me $1 is 144. I said no, it's 146. He told me it can't be 146. I say I was calm. First of all, always look very calm. Look like you have nothing to lose, and also look like you have ocean. So as she was still talking, I was pretending that I'm on my phone, isn't it? So first, what does that give impression? Yeah. That I must be searching for information, or that I must be chatting somebody elsewhere who actually is doing.
Going to give you a better deal.
So what do you want? Me, I just stopped when she said 45. I just kept quiet when I said 46, 146. Okay, what do you want to say? I said, can we do 145? I said, no. For me, the worst can be 145.5. Then I continued with my phone. They told me, let's give you 145. Actually, I was surprised to get 145. I thought it was going to be 140, 144.7.
That's it.
So I'm trying to say, these are techniques of negotiation. When you're negotiating, look like you're calm, cool, collected, and you have got nothing to lose. So Gachagua looks like he has got nothing to lose. That's
Absolutely.
saying nothing is coming out of it. But if there's anything,
yes,
he has most to lose.
Yes.
You understand? Musalia Mudavadi has to look like he has got nothing to lose. But anything, he has a lot to lose. So as Kenya Kwanza is trying to pretend that there is nothing to lose, this is just a joke, this is a waste of time and the rest, it cannot be a waste of time when Ichung'wah is sitting there as co-chair. It can't be a waste of time. It is passed in Senate and Parliament. So it is not true. But this other side also has to put stakes very high and said, we won the election. That's the server will show who won the presidency. Martha Karua impressed me. Saying, we're not looking for Nusumukate. We want to open the server and see who is there, and that is the full loaf of bread. So they have to show that the stakes are high and things can go either way. Because do you know what's happening? It's also easy that they can open the server, then Azimio says we don't agree with the server, it has been manipulated. What will you do? Still we go back to the same thing. People can still go for Maramano. Sometimes say they have to talk about issues that will hold this for hostage. You see, there's an analogy agreed here. There's a gentleman who was selling his house. No, there's a gentleman who was selling his house, and he wanted to sell his house for a lot of money. Then there's another guy who said, oh, you want to sell your money, so do this. I will sell this house for 10 million less, isn't it? But in condition that you give me a nail on a wall, just a nail, and I can do anything with that nail on the wall, and I can access that nail at any time. He said, okay, fine. Let me sell 10 million shillings. So the guy gave out his house to this guy, sold to him, but condition was that I can access the nail when I want, and I can use that nail the way I want. So this guy went and brought a rotten bone, and it was hanging on that nail.
On that particular nail?
Yeah. So what happens? The house is yours, but there's a rotten bone. So the smell is from the sitting room to the kitchen. So the guy eventually left the house. But he did not tell him to leave the house. He just put a rotten bone in a nail. So when you're negotiating, you have to put something that will continue making the other guy do what you want. And that's what has happened at the Salvation has happened, as I say. So a clause that Kenya Kwanza has sneaked into this thing by saying, should they disagree, Parliament will have a final word. You understand?
No,
there, Kenya Kwanza has a way out because RUTO has majority in Parliament, so it means that it cannot go Raila's way.
Yes.
But Azimio has also put some conditions about the audit of the 2022 elections, because even if they're true, see, they denied the Supreme Court decision. It has actually, when Raila says Supreme Court is wrong, more than half of Kenyans believe him. If Raila says this constitution is right, people say Raila has read it for us. So if Raila says the audit report is wrong, Kenyans will still believe him. This is the power that the man has, and it is factual, social license. So if you look here, RUTO has legal license, Raila has social license. They have to split this thing in half, isn't it?
Yes.
And that's why the stakes are very high, and that's why the narrative as to only leader of opposition is not good enough. Raila has so many people. Look at Mandamano. Everybody was there. Mwangiria, what does he want? Was he only there to be beaten by the sun? No. What is Raila going to get? What is in for Kalonzo? How do you deal with Martha? Because if you take something you give to Martha, don't give Kalonzo, it's a problem, isn't it? And 2027 is very far. So people have to find a way how to fit, and then now they'll jump from out of it in 2026 and begin campaigning. So the stakes must be high. There must be more positions to come. But I want to tell anybody opposing the bipartisan that as a leader,
yes,
you have to tell us what's the option. As Operation Ugatuzi, we disagree with bipartisan, but we propose multipartisan. That's why we are going to send our memoranda tomorrow or Friday to Bomas and tell them, let them open up these things to become a national dialogue where all parties are involved, because Kenya is a multi-party state.
Yes.
This, again, might change things if they adopt our memorandum, because according to me, if they begin this process that may lead to amending the constitution, do you know that it will be BBI2 which will fail? Because state actors cannot initiate amendment to the constitution through popular initiative. The law has said there's precedence from Supreme Court. So if they go ahead as stated, Simba, mark my words, unless Raila Odinga and William Ruto buy Supreme Court, High Court, and Court of Appeal, it will not fly. It will become a very, very big problem for both of them. And in fact, my urging is, for example, Operation Ugatuzi that had begun the issue of amending the constitution, they could have approached us in our bill and maybe ask us if we can work with them to amend our bill to accommodate some of them, and we take that again back to public participation. Because for us already we have collected signatures, that could work.
Yes.
But a state actor, the law does not allow, because the sovereignty of Kenya belongs to the people, and they said they can use delegated, isn't it, or
yes,
direct. Mm-hmm. And public initiative is delegated. Public initiative is direct. Delegated is from Parliament. So whatever they were doing in Parliament and Senate, those ones, I don't think whether they are constitutional. In fact, for me, they don't hold any water. They're just hogwash of trying to betray Kenyans. But the main thing is that let them open the dialogue committee to make it a national dialogue. Remember, the 2010 constitution came from Bomas meeting, which was convened by Yashwal Gai.
Yes.
It's from Bomas, that was a national dialogue, that we have the new constitution. So they cannot tell us the two people interest, Ruto Raila interest, begins and expands to people's interests. No, it doesn't work.
Pretty much. All right. Now, Biswa, if you listen to that particular submission right there by Prof, some question I want to put to you. I mean, I know you and I, when we were talking about this particular issue, we were a bit surprised when the government said that we also do have issues that we want to discuss with the Azimio coalition, and the only way you would essentially understand that is that they want a way in, a soft landing in whatever way it might come. Well, when you look at that particular analysis, what has the government given the Azimio coalition in this particular negotiation? Because if it's scratch my back, a scratch your back situation, you have to think that the government is going to scratch the Azimio coalition's back. In what way do you think they're going to scratch their back? Yes, Nabiso, can you check whether you're on mute? Can you check whether you're on mute? We lost you again.
Okay.
Fantastic. Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. I was saying that I really like the way you put it, that scratch my back, I scratch yours. You know, even the government, there are some issues that they really like to have or to work with, despite them knowing that their constitutionality doesn't allow.
Yes.
Now, when this opportunity came about for the talks, now they found it as a best avenue or a platform to use it to make it or to entrench it as they wish. Now, having listened to Professor in the studio, and today I must say that he has been so insightful, especially when he started by the story of one president who flew for 1 hour. That aside, now, Elijah, I'll say this. You know, the demonstration was much exciting,
yes,
and pulled a lot of masses, because there were people who believed that this is the time that the Azimio coalition is really going to march and take over the State House. And you will see any person who really supported Maandamano at that time will really tell you that tomorrow on Wednesday we are going to take over State House, we are going to throw out President William Ruto. And you could see there were some excitements that came as a result of those sentiments. But right now, there are some set framework and major issues that are being handled, especially on the outstanding constitutional matters, which are handling the first, looking at the cost of living. Elijah, as per my understanding, the cost of living in this country, it is where it is because of the shambles in our economy.
Yes.
And I'll say this, you cannot, the economy of a country, Elijah, cannot fall within a shortest period of time, let me say 4 months, 6 months. It must have come from somewhere. And we are where we are because we started from somewhere. Now, if it is on table, I don't think there is some sincerity from the dialoguing side that it is because of the Kenya Kwanza. Now, when Kenya Kwanza came in, it was clear that the economy of the country has dropped, has fallen, and that is why the cost of living is high. And even the president and the entire team gave us a framework on they are going to work on that. Now, I'm saying this, Elijah, because I still believe that all these issues, that there are some issues which are good, but all of them, there are some issues which I still have, personally, I have an issue with.
Yes.
Especially on that cost of living thing, cost of living agenda. It's not something that came at once, and it's not something which was caused by the Kenya Kwanza government. Despite the president promising that immediately I put down the Bible, I'm going to lower the cost of the cost of unga. You know, maybe he got inside. It's like a kitchen, Elijah. When you are outside, you will feel that inside there is hope, but immediately you enter there is when you realize that there is smoke, there is a lot of heat. Now you will need time to adapt to that environment. But on that note, even after some time, we were given some timelines on how the cost of living is being handled. In my thought, the opposition or the people who brought the proposal about the cost of living, I will still suggest that they still have given much time, like I'll say, like say a year is before giving their audit on the cost of living to see if it has gone down. I still don't think it's at the moment, it's one of the issues which has to be given much weighty, to be a weighty agenda.
Yes.
But also, there are some few things, like in our last discussion, we talked about the subsidy on fuel products. That's okay. To me, it's okay. Now, in entrenching it is necessary that we should have the office of the leader of opposition. This office, it will harness and probably it will lower down some animosities we experience after every election, because instead of the losing team or the team which comes second after election going on the street, they will have an office through which they will be able to channel their issues to the relevant authorities. So for me, it is necessary. But also, I still okay. You remember when the new government came in the president's proposal to the parliament to be discussed, I saw a number of opposition team. I think Otieno Omolo being one of them, because he's a man who gives us a lot of constitutional insights, saying that it's not possible, we don't need this office because it's not constitutional. And I don't know under which framework are they going to have this office back, or to entrench this office. Will we go the voting way, or we will leave the parliament to do that for us? For us as our representative. The office of the Prime Minister, Elijah, I still don't think it will be a matter. It will be a matter of discussion. You know, if the government needs to have a number of 22 ministers in place,
yes,
and you've come up with your team of 21 ministries or 22, then you take one minister and you make him like the prefect or the controller, like in the previous government we had of the super CS. Is the name which is having an issue, or what? Because all the roles this Prime Cabinet's secretary is undertaking, they're the roles which maybe have been shed off from one ministry because of the workload to him, basically to assist, and on top of that, to assist the president, to assist in management of the other ministers, like a prefect. Secondly, Elijah, we still need to, as a country, I think we need to take seriously our various laws, acts, and policies.
Yes.
If we are still talking about the infidelity of our political parties, when we have a political act in our constitution, what will make me have strong faith that this particular point will be enforced, when we cannot still, as a country or as a political class, abide by and respect the Political Parties Act? After passing this, at the end of the day, you know, a member of parliament or a given political parties hopping to another side, it's a norm. It's a norm. If they cannot abide by the Political Act, if our registrar of political parties cannot take actions, and our political agencies to enforce this act, I don't think if this particular point will be enforced and entrenched in our law, it will still don't stand. When the other government comes, election will come, a party from opposition or a member in opposition will just hope there is nothing we will do. Even now, I think all those members who crossed or who have crossed before in the previous governments, they will have been vindicated as an example to others. But it's just a norm, and maybe it will only work for this particular government, and when then another government comes in, it will be business as usual. Yeah. Now, another thing, Elijah, and I can tell for free.
Yes, Nabiswa, in 30 seconds. In 30 seconds, sir. Yes.
Yeah, Elijah, when it comes to establishment of funds into our constitution, I really still have an issue with these CDF issues. And I'm one of the person who really believes that CDF should be totally scrapped and maybe have a different funds for our development. Because the rate at which this member of parliament are using CDF is not in a better way. I'm on the ground now, Elijah, and I can tell you, if you call a member of parliament for Arambe, the money is coming to give there as a fund is part of CDF. The member of parliament are moving around with maybe splashing to the members, and especially when we near campaigns, it's high, and this fund, I think it should be looked at, and we should just go the way the court, the High Court had ruled that it be scrapped.
Pretty much. All right, Prof. Let's clear this conversation this morning like this then. If indeed these two sides know that the stage has been set and there are negotiations that are already ongoing, and one man who's quite silent on this particular issue is one President, William Ruto. He's quite silent on it. Is that the similar tone that should be observed from both ends, where you say, maybe now Kalonzo Musyoka should be speaking, Kimani Ichung'wah should be speaking, the rest of us, shut up, because we are derailing this process. In 1 minute, Prof, as we clear, do you think that this talk around the talks should stop now? We've agreed, the place has been agreed, the venue's been agreed, the issues to talk about should be agreed, that now the best thing would be shut up, wait for the 60 days, only talk after the 60th day.
I think the president is speaking very loud, only that he's not speaking directly. You know, President William Ruto, something about him is that those people cannot be speaking what he is not interested in. He is very different from President Uhuru and Kibaki.
Yes.
Kibaki, a dog could bark for their own sake. And Uhuru, the dogs could bark for their own sake. But Ruto, whenever you hear this dog bark that even you are surprised, whenever the media, actually the media had this mentality of confronting the president. What is your opinion that he says? Like, for example, the one of the GAF, when Moses Kuria bashed the media, you confronted him asking, Mr. President. He said, no. Who defends me? You remember, that means that Moses Kuria was speaking what he wanted. So when you hear Ichung'wah speaking, when you hear Gachagua speaking, Gachagua is speaking what the president can say. Remember, Gachagua even went and said, I'm telling you, as the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya. Look at the other side. Raila is now a little quiet about the talks. Who is speaking? Kalonzo, Eugene Wamalwa. So those are the two principles. So they decide to keep quiet. They speak through their wings. Why do you buy a dog and you bark? So the president finally has discovered that you own a dog, let the dog bark, not you. So these are dogs barking on behalf of their masters. And I think that for me, that takes this thing to the next level. Means that now the president does not want to take hard lines. He wants to take it softly through these people.
Yes.
And that could also mean that those people also might quiet down and the talks can actually become talks. But remember, there is not too much at stake at the moment. The issue is that the issues they have agreed on, people are going to speak about it. The public is still allowed to go and present petitions. And the public don't believe in these talks at all. Like us, we don't believe in them. The fact that we have talks is good, but the bipartisan talk is not good. We need it to be more expanded. So in this sense, I think that for me, there's a step going forward. Because when Raila was neck to neck with Ruto directly, it was not very good.
Yes.
So that conversation can create an enabling environment, because now we can say, these are just busybodies.
Yes.
Because remember, Raila went and answered Gachagua and told him, what do you know? Me, I know, I met Uhuru. I met Ruto, I know. Remember also, after Raila met with Uhuru, I'm taking you back to history because you have to understand that a good student in strategy must be good in history. After Raila met with Uhuru, did you hear for the last 4 years, people saying Uhuru has misled Raila with BBI? You had all those talks that Uhuru is not with Raila, Uhuru is just playing games. But Raila said, I am the one who met with Uhuru. I know what we agreed. Believe me. So now, they say that when one crocodile comes on the river and tell you that other crocodile are sick, you don't disagree. So Raila met with Ruto, and some people say the deal was crafted then. So I think for Raila to say, let's now talk, he must have put his terms in place, and Ruto must also put his terms in place, and they agreed on something. But the only difference between Ruto and Uhuru is, I told you, Uhuru is a very sincere leader. Uhuru you can take his word for it, isn't it? But can you take Ruto's word for it? I told about mannerism. So that's where Raila has an issue. That's why even you could see, for example, after Ruto went to Western,
yes,
Raila had to go to Western to rubbish what Ruto said. But remember, after the handshake between Nusumkate thing between handshake between Ruto, Uhuru and Raila,
yes,
Raila never ever criticized Uhuru in public. So for me, this is a very different scenario. We are trying to achieve the same thing, but different because they are opposing each other. Like the speech Raila made in Kakamega, criticizing Mambo Matatu, it means that they are not as close as him and Uhuru were after the handshake. We expected after Mombasa that they would just go down and tone down and speak to call each other brother, my brother, my brother. But the brother here is not there. Like now, Gachagua is still being called Gachietha. You know what it means? So we want all this to tone down so Gachagua can be His Excellency Deputy President, His Excellency the President. So the talk here is going on. But also you can say, maybe that is the noise they are making before defeat. You know, there's the noise you make before defeat. Yes, so the noise that are being made on the side of Gachagua's before the defeat is coming. But for me, there's a step where the president seems to be toning down. Raila Odinga seems to be toning down. But the hatchets are not yet fully buried. So, in fact, that's why Raila is telling his guys, tell them, you are not yet the president. And these guys tell them, you lost the election, no need of going to bomb us. But as talks go on, when the deal will be reached, I can tell you, you want to hear those things. So at the moment, the deal is not yet reached, but we like the progress that the talks have been agreed, issues have been agreed, the committee is in place, Parliament passed it, Senate passed it, but the environment of these talks is not as ideal as the ones we have seen before. And we are urging the actors, the state actors and the non-state actors, we need to approach with sincerity because people died, people lost property, people got sick, people were messed up. So we cannot be taking these talks as a joke, yet people died. And that's why we want a national dialogue akin to multi-partisan talks, which was done in Bomas before using Yash Palgai. Because I would tell you, whatever we are doing now, Simba, is painkillers. You know, when you have a headache and I give you a painkiller, I'm not treating you. The bipartisan talks is a painkiller. It is not a treatment. What Kenyans want is a treatment because remember, 1997, there was a painkiller that Raila and Moi swallowed. Why is it? Because again, it emerged again with Kibaki. Again, we got a painkiller. Then now, again, handshake was a painkiller. We want this now to be once and for all so that there is never ever going to be a post-election negotiation once and for all.
Just want to take this gentleman back to the time that he joined us right here on Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. Nabiso Brown, thank you very much for joining us this morning, sir. Always a pleasure to have you around. Prof, always a pleasure to have you around, sir. Guess what? We ended right here, right now. Good morning.
Thank you.